Hey everyone, this is John from ausf.G, and I'm here today with a undefined scale Panther G caricature medium tank. Unlike many of the other smaller scale builds that are showcased on the ECA channel, in which those builds are built for private commission and belong to a private collector, the model that you see here is built for my own personal collection and is not for sale and or purchase. However, if anyone is interested, I take on commission build projects from vehicles ranging from 1/35 scale all the way up to 1/6 scale. For availability and pricing information, that information would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@eastcoastarmory.com. Now, this model here is built 100% out of the box with 0 modifications that have been made by myself. We'll be going over the basic kit as well as how the model built up in this video. Before we go any further with the video, let's go ahead and take a quick walk around the model. And this vehicle here is the late production German Panther G medium tank. Actually, specifically, it is supposed to be a German Panther G. In actuality, it is a cartoon caricature of said vehicle. Now, for my normal subscribers who are watching this, probably scratching their heads and are a little bit perplexed at what the hell's going on their screen, this is John from ECA. This is the EastCoastArmory.com channel. And if you look at the date when this video drops, it should state April 1st, 2019, making it the EastCoastArmory.com April Fool's Day prank video of the year. In all seriousness, these models are actually pretty fun to work on and are a little bit of a unique subject matter. And it's definitely something outside of the beaten path that I generally work on these YouTube videos. Now, longtime viewers of the channel will notice that this is not the first time I've built one of these funky type of builds, and the first one was actually built a year ago, and that was the M4A1 Sherman tank. That video, of course, is found on the ECA channel listings. Now, if anyone is wondering about the weird dimensions and details that are seen on these models, that has to do with the subject matter. These models here are actually some video game merchandise. More specifically, these models belong to the video game War Toons. War Toons is a multiplayer VR first-person shooter that utilizes this strange, cartoonish type art style. The game is a class-based shooter and is very similar, I guess, along the lines of Team Fortress 2. The game has been around since 2015 and apparently is very popular since there are a wide range of model kits from this particular video game. All of the model kits have been produced by the company Meng, which normally produce very scale accurate models of military vehicles. And here's the model at the start of the project. The series of kits have really picked up within the last few years. At first, there was about 1 or 2 of these kits on the market. However, within the last several years, Meng has really expanded the range and incorporated a lot of different variants of several iconic World War II military vehicles. Starting with the model's graphic design, you can see here the cartoon stylized Panther. It appears to be a Panther G. But with something like this, there's really no scale associated, as everything is stretched out of proportions, because again, it is a caricature. We have the World War Toons logo. It's, of course, a plastic model kit from Meng. Have a quick sample of the completed model, as well as some screenshots of what the vehicle actually looks like in-game. Now, these models here are extremely prolific. This model here wasn't in the stash for very long and was actually a gift. The model was procured from Hobby Lobby, and I've seen these kits in stock very frequently. These kits can also easily be found online on retailers like Amazon.com as well as eBay, to name a few. One final thing to point out about the box that I noticed is that if you have another one of these kits and you put them next to each other, the graphics all connect to each other and make it as if it's one continuous banner. Now, from what I can remember, these models here are extremely simplistic in their detailing and are very simple to put together. They are all comprised of injection molded plastic, and the tracks are one-piece vinyl. Cracking open the box, you'll see the kit contents for the first time. For that, I'm going to utilize my little box cutter here. Make a nice simple incision. Peel away the cellophane. Model opens up from the side, which is somewhat unique, and plastic model kits generally don't really do this these days. And all the kit contents are right here in one vacuum sealed bag. Like I said before, very simplistic in its overall shape and scope. Digging further into the kits, gives us the upper hull, which kind of looks more like an Ontos than a Panther. But here goes the lower hull, all molded one piece. There are two other runners, which consist of the running gear, the gun, and a few other detail fittings. And the other runner here consists of the turret. Digging deeper in the box takes us to the decal sheet. Decals look actually pretty good. Meng models are always held in high regard, and the decals do look like they're really good quality. Moving down takes us to the rubber tracks, which are just one, literally one continuous piece. And they have their stylized thread pattern integrally molded on. Digging down deeper brings us to the instruction, which is, graphic design wise, is actually very nicely done. We have here some CAD drawings, and this is almost identical to the Sherman M4A1 build that I did last year. And here's the model now fully completed. The model itself is built totally out of the box with zero detail modifications or alterations that have been made to it. Also, what was seen in the unboxing portion is that you'll notice that the kit components are comprised of all injection molded plastic, which are very large and bulbous in size and shape. Because of this, the pieces are very easy to put together, and the model actually finishes very quickly. Some of the things to point out and to pay attention to have to do with the exhaust manifolds. Now, as simple as this kit is, the exhaust manifolds are actually very similar in design in the way the kit layout is compared to the other more serious Panther kits on the market compared to Dragon and Tamiya. The way the pieces are rendered on this kit here are very similar in that you have the two bottom portions, then you have the can sections, which are comprised of three components. You have two halves and a top detail cover. You also have small little mounts that connect and brace the exhaust manifold to the rear wall of the vehicle. Because of this design, you will have a seam to contend with on the two halves of the exhaust manifolds. Now, just like on the larger 135 models, the seam work is pretty much standard and is very easily deleted with a little bit of sandpaper and some super glue. A little bit of polishing and you're basically done, and you can then mount the components to the vehicle in exactly the same way that they are on the other kits that I mentioned before. Now, in this build, the only other seam work to mention, other than the exhaust, have to do with the gun stave tube that we have here on the side. This is also comprised of two halves that once mounted and glued together, you will have, of course, a seam running down the center. And again, the exact same technique for seam deletion was incorporated in this part as well. The other seams to point out have to do with the turret halves. and also you could say the upper and lower body pieces, again, which is contemporary on basically all Panther kits out there. Now, the way the kit fits and assembles, the seam work on these components here that I just mentioned, namely the turret and the hull, are very minimum at best, and are really nothing to sweat and worry about. Now, the gun is comprised of a single bit of molding. There are no halves to contend with. The only thing to mention is that because of the piece being molded as one integral piece, you do have a mold line running across the entire center portion of the entire piece. This is very easily buffed away with some fine sandpaper, and once done, you're basically finished. Moving from the barrel now takes us to the remainder of the side hull components, which on this particular build here would involve the Pioneer tools and some of the other vehicle fittings. Now, one thing I need to point out is that when it came time for mounting of these components, the fit on all these little pieces here were very, very, very tight. So much so that you can possibly cause damage to the pieces before they actually get clipped into their location. I believe the purpose of having the tightness on these parts has to do with the fact that these are technically a snap-together model, and you need to have that type of tolerance between the parts in order to negate the use of any sort of adhesives. However, because of these tight tolerances, I feel that you can possibly cause damage to some of the more frail components like the Pioneer tools, and I think they'll snap before they'll actually get locked into their proper locations. On this build here, specifically on some of these smaller fittings like these handles and the Pioneer tools themselves, I went ahead and with either an X-Acto or with some sandpaper, I removed some of the material found on the actual snap points. With the tolerances opened up, the pieces then were able to slide into their appropriate locations with minimum effort, and they were able to go on without any sort of risk of damage to the actual parts themselves. This is one procedure that I recommend to all of the fittings, the spare track links included. Another location where I noticed this type of a feature was on the running gear. On the suspension, the tank's wheels mount to integrally molded in rods that are found on the side of the hull. The wheels slide onto the rods, and then there is a retention cap which goes over and keeps everything in place. It's simple, it works. However, one thing that I noticed on this build was that when it came time to mounting on the road wheels, the main retention cups were very difficult to get them fully seated. So much so that I had to go ahead and remove about a 1/16 of, or to about an 1/8 of an inch off of the bottom portion of the cups in order for them to fit on in a nice, smooth manner. With the removal of the little bit of material, the pieces were then able to mount on without any need of extra force required to press fit the pieces together. I feel that if you need that extra bit of force, it's to the point where you can possibly cause damage to the rods that are molded in, which will then cause some more issues because now you have to do some repair work and possibly drill stuff out and replace it with metal rods. All that adds more complexity and definitely more frustration to what is normally a very simple build. The best way, again, to remove the situation from happening is to simply just shorten the retention cups about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. From the suspension now takes us to the tank's paint and the markings. For the model's paint, I went ahead and incorporated a German ambush camouflage scheme. Nothing really fancy, it's my usual painting techniques that I've used on the other builds that I've showcased on the ECA channel. The markings that you see on the model are all of the ones that are supplied with the Meng kit, and the decal quality is very nicely done. They are, again, just your basic set of water slide decals, and for the medium, they were problem-free. They were able to be installed, they lacquered onto the model, and you don't have a whole lot of decal shine, which plagues some lower quality decals. The decals are also all over the place in terms of markings and certain other symbols. There's, I believe, a small little unit marking on the side here of the turret, which is actually, I believe, for a German heavy tank division. I've seen that marking on a few Tiger 1s. And then you have stuff like a small little name on the back of the turret. Of course, this being a video game tank, these markings are undoubtedly found on the ones in the game. Overall, I'm happy on how the model turned out. These models here, because of their simplicity, they do go together very quickly and get completed in a very timely manner. This build here basically was done in roughly about 2 hours time. The only thing I had to wait on was the adhesives and the putty work to dry for the tube here on the side, as well as the exhaust manifolds on the rear. Other than that, the vehicle was a problem-free construction and just again slid to the finish line. Because of the relative ease that these kits go together, I recommend these models for just about anybody. A beginner all the way up to an advanced modeler can tackle one of these kits and have some pretty decent results. Of course, these models here are recommended for anyone who is a fan of the World War Toons video game, or if you just want to have something different in your tank collection and occasionally want to take a break from building more serious builds such as Tigers, Shermans, M60s, and what have you. Something like this is a great way to spend a Sunday evening, or possibly just a way to kill some extra time. And with that, that wraps up this model showcase video for this caricature, undefined scale, Panther G medium tank. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel where you can get updates on new model showcase and project update videos when they get posted. Another way to keep in the loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook. There I have more pictures of this particular build, as well as the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been posted on the ECA channel in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks for watching, and have a happy April Fool's Day.